Welcome to today's episode of Confessions of a Cleaning Business Owner. Today we're going to be venturing into the world of oven cleaning from the point of view of domestic cleaners. So, Diane, this is always an interesting one. A lot of domestic cleaners do ovens. But what they do to ovens is up for debate. What are they doing to ovens?
This is Confessions of a Cleaning Business Owner. I know nothing about oven cleaning. It's not something that I have ever wanted to do, and we outsource it. However, it can be a good addition, can't it, to a cleaning business? But I think there are huge pitfalls around how it's done and what it's done with.
Okay, so I have made a lot of mistakes with oven cleaning, right? I have learnt the hard way. I can tell you we now outsource it, but I started off doing oven cleaning. And then my wonderful husband, who also works in the business, in the end, like he does with a lot of our systems, he likes to systemize everything. He took the oven cleaning and he looked at every part of the process and went, oh, stop doing it. Just stop doing it. Let's do it properly. Let's invest in all the right equipment. Let's break down the process and let's do it. And we started offering oven cleaning as a standalone service, right? Which kind of went well. Well, when I say kind of went well, the demand was through the roof. It's supposedly higher profit. But the reality is, would I question whether it actually was when you looked at everything? There's a lot of risk. We had everything that could go wrong. We had seals, customer seals would break, corroded screws were a major problem. And what we realized with oven cleaning, so a professional oven cleaner will remove the back plate, you know where the fan is?
Yeah.
They'll remove the back plate and they'll clean that back plate, because actually the problem with a lot of domestic cleaners, they clean the oven and often there's a smell because the fats are on the fan. And so you need to remove the back plate to do that properly. Well, not many domestic cleaners are turning up with their screwdriver, removing that back plate and cleaning that fan. And if you want to get rid of all those horrible pongy smells, that's how you have to do it. But inevitably, customers' ovens are corroded and nasty because they have used your oven Pride, your Mr. Muscle, all these things that you can use, and they've corroded all the screws. So we rock up with a screwdriver going, you touch it and the screw's like flaking off, and you're like, when I do remove this, what am I going to do next? So we then end up having to carry new screws. And then the other problem is light bulbs go, and as a professional oven cleaner, they expect you to replace the light or at least have something to do with it. So then we had to keep a stock of bulbs. Oh, Diane. And then, of course, there's the grill. You've got to learn to be able to drop that grill. How are you going to clean? Do you know what I'm talking about here? You know, the grill.
I do. I know the bit you mean, yeah.
And so the problem is, if you do what a lot of domestic cleaners do, they spray it in there off the shelf chemical they got from Tesco's, your oven Prides and goodness knows what. How on earth are they tackling that grill? Because you can't get these chemicals all over those grill bits. And it's a nightmare, isn't it? It's a nightmare. And then you don't have a dip tank. So how are you cleaning these trays? Because without a dip tank, those trays can take as long, if not longer, than the actual oven itself. And what a disaster. What a disaster. I've got to say, oven cleaning is a specialist skill. I will not have my staff do oven cleaning. And there's one other thing we won't do as well. So, a lot of customers go, will you wipe out my oven? They don't say it in that voice. They say, will you wipe out my oven? Nicely to me.
In your head, you hear it, will you wipe out my oven?
Yeah. To which I go, I've been literally burnt by this in the past, because you can wipe out all the crumbs and they go, oh, you didn't do the shelves right. No, because you asked me to wipe out your oven. Well, I'd expected you, you're a professional cleaner. I'd expected you to do the shelves. Oh, actually, it smells a bit. Oh, it's splashed. You didn't get that bit. No, because you asked me to wipe out your oven. You're telling me now you want a full oven clean. And the problem for me is, like, cleaning's a kind of continuum. You either do it properly now or we don't do it at all, because anything other than it properly being done, it laid us open to complaints.
It's like a lot of things, isn't it, with cleaning? If you start, you've kind of got to finish. I mean, have you ever wiped a tile and gone, oh no, now I've got to wipe the whole wall because I didn't realise how bad it was? And it's the same with ovens, isn't it? You can't just wipe them out. Yeah, not as a professional. As a homeowner, absolutely give it a quick wipe out and pretend you cleaned your oven. But we're professionals. That's not our job.
Do you know what I say to customers now if they ask me to do that? I'm like, I'll give you the number of a proper oven cleaner. Go and get yourself an oven liner, shove it through the dishwasher. Then you don't need to worry about having it wiped out.
Yeah. I love an oven liner.
So anyway, let's get on to the actual science of oven cleaning, because there are people here that will actually want to be listening to this to go, how do I clean an oven? Okay. So your number one best tool will be an oven scraper. You are going to need to get an oven scraper, a blade. You can use glass cleaning blades or a proper oven scraping blade.
Is it the same sort of blade then as you would use to clean glass?
Yes, although an oven scraper is bigger and has a handle.
Okay.
So the problem with the window ones is quite often you have to put it, because they don't need a lot of pressure, you can have them quite small. Whereas with the oven, you need a bit more pressure. So actually, if you're using a small one, because I've got my hands here, they're quite small, you can't get as much pressure on them. So it's the same blade to a certain extent, but actually an oven cleaning one, you can get right in there.
Okay.
And then the other thing, because you're basically getting inside the oven, you are going to need very long gloves. So you can get oven cleaning gloves. So even your marigolds aren't going to cut it. You are going to need them right up past the elbows to your sort of mid-arm. And then the other most important thing is, and we've been stung by this as well, when you clean an oven, whether you're using dangerous chemicals or not, inevitably at some point it's going to go on the floor. So you are going to need some kind of matting or plastic sheeting underneath that oven so that you don't damage either the cupboards or the floor below it. So that's just sort of 3 things you're going to need. And so this is the interesting part. Have you ever explored into dip tanks?
I know about them, but definitely not something I've ever looked at.
So traditionally, a dip tank is in the back of your van. It's hooked up to a gas supply. And so you're using a gas canister to heat up your cauldron of chemicals, do I call it that? So you're going to have some kind of caustic something that will break it down. It's quite strong, potent chemicals. So we've got a gas supply going on, and you've got a hot pool, do I call it, vat of chemicals. You can dip it in. It will save you so much time. Anything that can be removed from the oven, you can leave it in there in the back of your van as you're traveling. It's got a lid on it. They're really, really good. That's expensive though, and for a lot of domestic cleaners, that's not a reality. That's what proper oven cleaners have traditionally done. And I think there's a real move in oven cleaning. So we've always used caustic soda and some of your more dangerous chemicals, which I've mentioned, your Mr. Muscle, your well, there's lots of them. I'm not going to name all the oven cleaning chemicals. But the reality is, we talked about this on another podcast, you are going to need some way of getting it to soak, some way of heating it up, and we need 2 types of chemicals. We're going to need a degreasing chemical and a decarboning chemical. Do you call it decarboning? We need to remove the carbon, basically.
We do now.
I think that's the right word. I come on these podcasts and I actually talk about some of the science behind some of these things. I always use the wrong word. It's like bacteria eating the other day. They don't eat. But anyway, we're going to need to remove the carbon. So you're going to need 2 types of chemicals. So our degreasing chemical, you can use something as simple as fairy liquid or your whatever liquid dishwashing soap will take off grease. And if left for long enough, they do work. And you hear lots of people talk about dishwasher tablets. Well, actually, they can be very, very good at breaking down grease. What they don't do, they are not going to touch your carbon deposits. And by this, the black burnt on bits, it's just not grease. It's just not going to remove. So we're looking for more of something that removes carbon. Again, if you're looking for a chemical that isn't particularly potent, chemicals such as, and I mentioned this when I was talking about chemicals the other day, flash. Flash actually can remove carbon. So we're looking at really 2 quite common household chemicals, which are not particularly dangerous. Yes, we need eye protection. Yes, we're going to need masks if you use your dangerous chemicals, and you're going to need your gloves. But when we talk about a dip tank now, you need something that's going to safely hold those chemicals. And since they're not particularly potent chemicals, you can use a plastic dip tank. And if you want the heat, we've got access to kettles and things. And so you can make your own dip tank. And you're looking really confused at this, Diane, going, really?
I have actually seen them fairly recently. There's sort of the plastic dip tanks and sort of the mutuals. Do you think that will, if we're moving towards less caustic chemicals, is that where they've come from, or is it just a desire for people to clean their own ovens rather than paying somebody to do it?
I think people have always done their own ovens. A lot of people just don't trust other people to do it, or maybe there wasn't oven cleaners. But given that a lot of us, there's been a real rise in storage, and a lot of us have these big tubs at home for storage of various things, that is effectively a dip tank. It's not your gas-powered caustic one. And, when you look at any container that holds a chemical, it is rated to how well it will hold that chemical. And this is one of the things you look at Kosh, and this is why you can't really change the containers of chemicals, because there are chemicals that will not contain there are containers that will dissolve given a certain amount of time with caustic chemicals. Whereas actually, when we're looking at some of your tough plastics and we're only putting in your fairy liquid and your flash, they will hold them quite well. Whereas previously there was no option other than your caustic chemicals.
So if we're going back to when we talked about on a previous podcast about chat, so chemicals, heat, agitation, and time.
You're learning now, Diane, aren't you?
The dip tank is 3 of those things. It's not necessarily agitation, because that might not be needed. Is that right?
So you will still need to agitate. So you're still going to have to scrub everything. And again, this is where we're talking about your scraper, or a lot of them are going to use your wire wool. A lot of people like wire wool, or your brass wool, which is better for your glass, which is a bit finer, or your non-scratch scourer, which is a lot safer for everything. So there's a lot of non-scratch scourers. So yes, you're going to have to agitate. So we're looking at your heat is coming from your hot water from your kettle, your chemical. Your chemical action, that's coming from the chemicals you've put in there. The time you're leaving it to soak while you're actually cleaning the oven, and then your agitation, you're going to have to scrub it afterwards. So we're looking at all 4 being covered in those dip tanks. Will it work as well or as fast as the proper ones? Absolutely not.
Okay. So is it a good add-on for a domestic cleaning business then? I mean, I can see it being a really good add-on for end of tenancies, because it means that you can kind of do the whole job, a bit like carpet cleaning as well. But is it a good add-on for a domestic business? Is it something that you said there was big demand?
Is it a good add-on? Yes and no. I think it depends on your business. If you're doing a lot of end of tenancies, you're going to have to supply a solution, and it makes absolute sense that the solution comes from within your business. And if you're doing them all the time, then yes, it absolutely makes sense. If you are not doing that and you're doing just regular cleaning, and you're not particularly experienced, the cost of investing in a lot of this equipment, the training, the knowledge that you need to get there, if you're only cleaning one oven every 2 weeks, no, I think I'd outsource it. Because I think, honestly, if you outsource it to a professional, to an expert, if you're only doing one oven every 2 weeks, you're not going to know how to face taking these corroded screws off. You're not going to know how to face a lot of these problems that if you were doing, 2 or 3 a day, or even 2 or 3 a week with your end of tenancies, you can take the loss when it goes a bit wrong a lot more easily than just a domestic clean. So for me, is it a good add-on? It depends what you're doing. But I think a lot of people think it's easy, and it absolutely isn't. There is a lot of expert knowledge required for this. I know, because I went out and got it, and it went wrong still.
And I think for me, the biggest pitfall that you've mentioned is really that you're not just cleaning the oven. Sometimes you've got to almost fix it, like putting replacement bulbs in, replacing screws. It's a bit like when we're cleaning things in a client's house on a normal regular basis. We're not there to fix things. If they've got some damage, it's not actually our job to fix it. And whereas with oven cleaning, it feels like it is.
Well, this is the other thing. So we ended up having to look up manuals every time, because if you think of the door, you've got a double layer of glass. Well, if you're lucky, it slides out nicely. Well, if you're not, you're going to be unscrewing, you're taking the door apart, you might be taking the hinges apart, because you have to clean it all properly. And I just think, if you want to do this as a domestic cleaner, power to you, go ahead and do it. But it's not as easy as you think. It is a maintenance job. And I think that a lot of us are not aware of that. And a lot of domestic cleaners are going in with the supermarket products. They're putting their health at risk. They're damaging the ovens themselves, because a lot of ovens aren't suitable for those corrosive products, particularly, some of the modern ones, they've got non-stick sides. You do have to do them with different chemicals. And I just think that if you're not prepared to put in the level of study that I'm talking about here, then really you don't know enough to be doing this. And they're expensive to replace. We've just bought a new oven. They're £1,000 a time. It's a costly thing. Whereas if you're just doing domestic cleaning, you're not running the same level of risks as, I think, the ovens. They break more often than you think.
And I suppose from an insurance point of view as well, making sure that you're actually covered to be going out cleaning ovens, because it's got to be a different level of insurance. It's not necessarily going to be massively expensive, but it needs to be there, doesn't it? It's different to domestic cleaning.
And the other thing that the problem I found with domestic cleaning, not domestic cleaning, I love domestic cleaning. Domestic cleaning is a business model. You make money as you scale. So you don't make a lot of money on each job. You don't make a lot per hour, but you can scale the business, and that's how you make money. Whereas what I found with oven cleaning is you make more money, but actually it's quite hard to scale, because if you start training your staff to do it, and then they go, well, okay, I know how much you are charging and I can make from oven cleaning. You're going to pay me what for domestic cleaning? Or I'm now good enough at this oven cleaning that it's quite easy for them to go out and do it themselves. And so it's quite hard, I think, to scale oven cleaning as part of a domestic cleaning model. That's not to say it's impossible, and there are definitely franchises that do it, but it's not as simple.
I suppose it's the same with carpet cleaning, isn't it? And I often have this conversation of what I love the most about domestic cleaning is its repeat business. Now, with the best will in the world, people don't have their carpets cleaned every week. They don't have their oven cleaned every week. So even though you will have repeat business, they're so far apart, you must constantly be having to get new customers for that service. So I've worked with carpet cleaners in the past, and they're booked up, but only 3 or 4 weeks in advance. Whereas we have Mr. Smith for 3 hours every week, forever almost sometimes. So it's harder to scale, I think, isn't it? But I suppose as an add-on, you don't need to worry quite so much about the scaling if you're already scaling a domestic business.
And also, not everyone's very good at oven cleaning. So you've got to train someone, and really you're probably pulling them off some other job. And so, yeah, I think it's a good add-on. Personally, having been through it and learned, and we did very well, and actually we offered oven cleaning for about 2 years. We did make good money from it. In the end, we stopped because it was my husband that was actually me as well. Do you know what? I say him. It was supposed to be him. I was delivering. I remember doing a commercial oven. I was there for 3 hours like, oh my Lord, what am I doing? And the other thing I don't think people realize about oven cleaning is they're down low, you're bent over, it's a little bit backbreaking, it's physically hard as you're scraping. And they're, as you're doing these, I've got the name shelves, the wire shelves, they're just fiddly and annoying. And I didn't get much job satisfaction from this, I've got to say.
I wonder if there are oven cleaning businesses out there, and I'm not aware of any. I know there's a lot of oven cleaning franchises, but the only ones that I've come across in my letting agency and my cleaning business are usually 1 or 2 people. I wonder if there are some oven cleaning businesses out there that have managed to scale to 20 plus staff like you can in a domestic cleaning business. It'd be interesting to find out if anybody knows anybody.
I think the part of the problem is they have to be so spread out, don't they? Because one oven cleaner can cover quite a large area, whereas as domestic cleaners, they can be very concentrated. So
we can do like a 5-mile radius and be super busy, can't we?
Yeah. But no, I would say it's worth getting into it, but be aware, look at it carefully, and check that it matches your business model. End of tenancies. I would definitely be offering them 100%. But regular, I'd be partnering with a oven cleaner, and he passes work our way as well. So an oven cleaner is often brought in to do a job, particularly around Christmas, and so we swap. So we give out his cards and he gives out ours, and it works really nicely. I say really nicely. I feel he benefits more than I do, but
I think most of those strategic relationships benefit more than we do, but actually it benefits our customers. I think it's good for customer service if we've got somebody to recommend.
Yeah, and I would rather, like, so now if we do end of tenancies, I will say, look, this is the number of this person. And because he's not VAT registered, I say book it direct through him. And then I don't have to charge you VAT on that, because that's the other problem. If they book it through me and I take a cut, not only do I have to charge my cut, I've got to charge VAT on the whole lot as well. So I normally get the customer to do it through them. If there is a problem with their oven, I then have no responsibility because they booked it directly with them.
Yeah, we're exactly the same.
And I think it's about protecting yourself. And yeah, I could talk all day about the different business models. I think that's the thing.
I think that's the key thing here, though, isn't it? Is that if something fits your business model and what you are trying to achieve, fantastic. If not, is it a shiny penny, something that you think is an easy fix or easy money? It often isn't. But if it fits, great. But if it doesn't fit, then concentrate on what you do want to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane. Lovely chat about oven cleaning today.